Politicians are not the solution to our problems. The people are. And we have found from term limits to tax limits, all kinds of issues that the American people embrace that politicians refuse to take action on. So we have to have some process to check politicians and to do reform when politicians refuse to reform. That's the ballot initiative process. 30 years ago in California, Prop 13 kicked off a tax revolt that's still reverberating around the country. The term limits movement. Without the initiative process, we wouldn't have term limits anywhere. Instead, it's opening up the process in state after state, 15 states that have it for the legislature, for governors. So we have to have a process where citizens can do the American thing, which is do it yourself. And it's important, obviously, who we have in public office. But most important is that citizens are engaged. And the best way to engage in politics, I think, is at the local level, at the state level, through the ballot initiative process.
How many states allow a ballot initiative?
24 states have a statewide initiative process where you can put a measure on the ballot or you can refer something that's passed by the legislature onto the ballot for a vote of the people. But in a lot of states that don't have the initiative process, states like Texas or New York, they don't have a statewide process, but at the local level, cities, counties, they have a very vibrant process so that if you want to get a handle on local spending, want to term limit local officials, all kinds of things like that can be done through the initiative.
You mentioned term limits several times. After the Supreme Court ruling, I think it was 95, the term limits took a pretty severe hit. Can people at the state level still term limit their state officials and local officials? Can they have any impact on term limiting congressional officials?
People can do term limits at the local and state level all across the country. There are 15 states that have it for their state legislature. Virtually all of them, all but one, are initiative states. But at the local level, you can term limit officials. At the state level, you can do it. The court decision back in '95 stopped the move for congressional term limits because it argued that voters couldn't do it at the state level. I think it was a terrible decision, but that's what we have to live with. But at the local level, at the state level, Katie bar the door, voters love term limits and you can enact them. They've been ruled constitutional. So it's just a matter of citizens getting active, going collect signatures, put the measure on the ballot. The voters love it.
One more question on term limits. The opponents of term limits say that they remove qualified politicians from the system, that just about the time someone learns the system and is able to affect needed change, that all of a sudden they're swept out of office by term limits. What's your answer to that?
Well, sometimes people want their politicians to have learned the ropes. I think that we're better off with politicians who are coming straight from their other walks of life, who understand what it's like to pay taxes, to run a business. We need those folks making policy, not the politicians who've been there 20 and 30 years and, quote, know the ropes. They know how to game the system. That's not what the public's interested. We're interested in people coming to Washington or going to the state legislature or the city council, bringing their experience and making good public policy. The experts running the show have not done very well for our country at the national level, state level, or the local level. And that's what term limits are all about. That in our country, the idea is that the citizens are the government, not a bunch of experts. And so, this idea that somehow we'll lose all our good legislators, there are plenty of good people out there who can take their place, and we have to find some good legislators before we can lose them. I'm ready for new blood, and I think the American people across the board are ready to get new people into office. When they learn the ropes and they have to leave, if they want to go on to another office, that's great. They can take that experience and run for higher office, run for a local office, state office. So there's, people who want to serve in public office have plenty of opportunities, but without term limits, they tend to occupy a seat, entrench themselves, and before you know it, they are arrogant, unlistening, and that's been the biggest problem, I think, in our public policy, is that we have people making that policy who are removed from the average citizen.